I'm here today with Bunmi Laditan. Bunmi is an award-winning Webby-nominated writer from California who lives in Quebec, Canada, with her family. Her new book is Help Me God, I'm a Parent, Honest Prayers for Hectic Days and Endless Nights, from Zondervan. She's contributed to the New York Times Parenting and the Huffington Post and is best known for her satirical Twitter account, Honest Toddler, with 1.6 million followers. Her debut novel, Confessions of a Domestic Failure, quickly became a USA Today bestseller. She has written poetry such as Dear Mother, Poems for the Hot Mess of a Motherhood, and has appeared on The Today Show, CBS Sunday Morning, and Good Morning America in support of previous books, including her 2021 book, Dear God. You can learn more at bunmiladitan.com. That's BUNMILADITAN.com. So Bunmi, thanks so much for joining us. Congratulations on all your work.
Oh, thank you for having me. Thank you.
So maybe to get started, you can give folks a little bit more about your background.
Okay. Yeah, so I'm born and raised in California, in Northern California. Um, I'm first generation Nigerian, so I was the first one born in the West in my family. My oldest brother was born in Nigeria. Um, my parents originally came to the States my dad was studying wood science at Cal Berkeley, and but after that, it didn't really, the plan was to go back to Nigeria, but they ended up becoming citizens and working here. So they really struggled, and like immigrants do, really, really struggled and um, studied and eventually kind of like made it here. So I guess they lived the American dream. But growing up, it's very difficult to watch your parents struggle. And I relate very closely to first generation immigrant kids who kind of live that half life of their traditional family at home and then wanting to be American kids outside of the house. But yeah, and to a Christian family, a Nigerian Yoruba is our tribe. That kind of Christian, it's almost like a mix of, I guess the closest in relation would be like Pentecostal,
Hmm.
but also some indigenous um, beliefs, like like blessing water, things like that to give. Um, so it was like very unique blend of faiths.
Cool. So what led you to start writing? You've written all these
Oh,
books, it's like, how did that happen?
I think reading is where it started. I've always loved reading so much. I started reading, gosh, I feel like I've always been reading. I can't remember when I learned to read, but one of the best days of my life as a child was learning about the library and getting a library card.
Yeah.
I can still remember the feeling like, and just like, because we're very poor, right? So I wasn't getting a lot of books bought for me at all. It was too expensive. I remember like the Scholastic Book Fair, like I never had any
Hmm.
money to buy any books, but I would read as many as I could during the time we went there. So I think I was maybe five or no, 6 or 7 when I got a library card, and it's just this card and this big building of books, and you can get as many as you want. I mean, pretty much you get up to like 15, but you can go back and it's free. Like that blew my mind. It's like it's a store. How is this? I mean, who's paying for this? Like how is this even working? It felt like a dream. And so I would go. My mom would take us all the time. It's summer reading programs, and it's just like heaven. It was heaven. So I've always loved reading. Um, and then even my early teens, just my whole life, I love books.
So tell us
And that's
about,
how writing started.
yeah, so I mean, before we get into the new book, tell us about, some of the other books that you've written.
Oh yeah, so my first book came out of my Twitter account, which was The Honest Toddler. So then that was my first book deal. And before then, I'd always been trying to break into writing. I would write free for anyone that would take my writing. I mean, any blog, any website. You're just trying to make it in
Mhm.
what feels like a very impossible industry, like most, I guess, like music or art or anything. Um, and I'd had, written agents and gotten rejections, all of that. But when you love something, when you really believe it's the place for you, you keep going. You just keep going. And so my first book was Honest Toddler. And then that book, it had a lot of like fanfare behind it, but it actually didn't do very well.
Hmm.
So after that, I self-published a book to kind of prove to myself and I guess the industry that I could sell a book. And so that book did well, and I ended up selling it to a publisher.
Hmm.
And then I just kept writing. And I think people have a misconception that like once you're in, but it's not. It's kind of like not you're as good as your last book, but it's like each book is like you're kind of struggling to have people believe in it and just like really just make it like birth it.
Hmm.
With my book Confessions of a Domestic Failure, it did very well. That book actually got rejected, I think, by 19 different publishers.
Wow.
And it's rough, when I was getting these emails from my agent. Okay, they said no, they said no, they said no. I don't know how she kept going. She just like heart of gold believed in me. But and that's after I'd written a few books
Hmm.
and just the no, no, no. And she kept saying, we only need one, we only need one. And I was like, I just so believed in the book too. And then finally I got a book deal with that.
Wow. So we mentioned your Twitter following is enormous. How, what do you attribute that to? How did that happen?
Oh gosh, I don't think I think it's not. I don't think it's. I haven't checked. I don't use Twitter very much anymore. I think it's like 500,000 or something like that. And I started that Twitter account like whenever I write, I'm writing from something that I'm going through and feeling very strongly. Um, and at that time, my second born child, I was going through it with her. She's very spirited. She's like me in the way that she just she's going to do what she's going to do, basically. It's that middle child thing, it's just, a lot of people say that with their second born, like, it's like, and so she was just like the classic toddler. And I'd had a toddler before, but she was that firstborn toddler who makes you feel like you're a very good parent. It's just very easy. Like, oh my gosh, I'm just such a gifted, in tune mother, and then because I had read like Happiest Toddler on the Block. I thought I was just nailing it. And so then I had this classic toddler who like, I mean, I remember one time she just laid down in the middle of an intersection because she didn't feel like walking anymore. We're crossing the street and she didn't feel like walking. So she just laid down. And she had this scream that she would do in stores that was so high pitched and
Oh,
like,
goodness.
oh, like people would stop and look. Like it sounded maybe like a few decibels below like those dog whistles, that you can't
Yeah.
hear. So you could hear it, but it was like painful. She would do it in the pharmacy, anywhere. I mean, and then so I started this Twitter account that's basically in the voice of this toddler who does not care, like who doesn't care, doesn't, is going to do what this toddler is going to do. And parents who were struggling, I think it resonated with them.
Hmm.
We're united in our daily pain. So
Wow. That's something, isn't it? Good for you.
yeah, thanks. It's really fun to do because it's really fun. Like when I look back on it, I wish I could do another day. And I think if I would do another day, I would just relax more and just like release her into a field and just be like, go, have fun, and just watch her. But in the moment where you're thinking, they're like, this child's going to go to jail. Like, this child does not care about rules. Like, it feels so alarming. But in hindsight, you're like, okay,
They
she's still
eventually
alive.
grow out of it, don't they?
Yeah, they do. They mellow out. You still see that fire. They keep the
Yeah,
fire,
yeah.
but it's not like burning you every single day in the same way.
I can relate.
You can relate?
Two children. So anyway,
Okay. Yeah.
so let's get into the new book. The title is "Help Me God, I'm a Parent." So what motivated you to write that book?
Oh man. So, what motivated? So I became a believer around like 4 or 5 years ago. I had always known. See, I'd grown up in a Christian environment. I grew up in like a Jesus environment, but it did not take with me. I don't know why. It just didn't. I've always been the type of person that's experienced something for themselves. Like hearing about it, I think it can influence how I think to a certain degree. Um, but I've just always been a very hard-headed, like experience-driven person. So, like the hard way, I always take the hard way. And so I had really wandered in life, but I'd always wanted to know who God was. I wanted to know God and I wanted to believe in God, and that there was a God who could care about people specifically, um, like not just universe, right? And so after becoming a believer, I had my own experiences. I had my own like supernatural experiences, and
Hmm.
feeling the presence of God that change like the presence of God changes you. Being in the presence just it does. It's you live one, you have one life, and then there's an experience with God, and then there's another life. Like it's just like that. And so this book is really the intersection of my parenting life and liking to write about parenting and my faith, because prayer is such a huge part of my everyday life. I could not get through this life without prayer and God and knowing God's love for me and God's love for my kids.
Hmm. Well, good for you. Uh,
Thank you.
would you say that the book is primarily intended for new parents?
No, it's actually I split it into different sections, so it really covers the gamut. Is that the right word? Of the new parenting experience, and then there's one that's specifically teens, because I think parents of teens they're having their own experience.
Yeah.
They're praying very different prayers. I'm in the teen world right now, and it's so different from when you're holding their hand, they're toddlers, they're not going anywhere. You can even get a backpack leash, if they're a runner. But when they're teenagers and it's time for them to experience life and have their own private life, and they talk to you when they feel like opening up to you, and they're just you see them making their way out of the nest, and it's terrifying. But because we know the world, right? We know it. And there's so many beautiful things in the world. So it's also amazing to see them grow into people and to see their personalities like bloom into these young adultness. So it's beautiful, but it's also scary. And so those prayers are like the prayers that I've prayed as a mother of older baby birds.
Hmm. Hmm. So the book description says that it includes prayers. It also says it includes poetry. So how is the book organized?
It's organized in the beginning are prayers that I've prayed, but they're prayed in kind of in like a poetic way. So it's not it doesn't feel like a devotional or anything like that. It just feels like I write poems to God in my journal. Um I write to God a lot. I write to God every single day. Actually, when in the morning, I just write letters. I hope he keeps them somewhere. Um, like I'm faxing, heaven or something, but I just write them. And so in the book is the same style where I'm writing these prayers that are poems to God about what's on my heart. Um, yes.
Hmm. Hmm. Cool. So I'd like to read a couple of endorsements for the book. This one is from Jenny Lawson. She says, "I'm not religious. This book should not be for me, but it was. Beautiful prose, brutal honesty, comfort and grace and relevance." So how do you think a book of prayers communicates so well with someone who's not religious?
Oh, I think it's because I'm not pushing religion on anybody. I'm just speaking from my heart and the universal things that are happening in all of our hearts as we raise children and go through life. Um, if one thing I've learned is that we're all going through similar things. We're not quite as unique as I don't know, we're led to believe in some ways. And not we're unique, but our experiences are shockingly similar. I guess memes have really taught me that. Like when I see a meme and I'm like, I thought that was just me, but it's like hundreds of thousands of people that were all walking very like identical almost paths in different ways. So when I'm writing these prayers, I'm writing about the things that we're all going through. And yes, in my life, those are going to God, but they still cover the same struggles and joys that everybody experiences.
Hmm. So here's another endorsement. This one's from Austin Channing Brown. She says, Here, Bhumi speaks with God honestly, giving us permission to do the same. So do you think that your kind of openness and honesty, authenticity is a significant factor in relating to your audience?
I think so. I've never been able to successfully um, fake an emotion. So when I hear people, sometimes people say to me, like, you're so vulnerable and authentic, and it kind of scares me. It's like, I am uh, like, am I showing too much? Because I only know one way to be. If I could pretend um, in a way that was convincing, honestly, I probably would. Just, I don't know. I mean, everybody wants to like kind of seem better or more in control than they are. But I've always kind of felt like I was born missing that outer layer of the thing that people have that makes them um, like that poker face kind of thing. So when I experience something or feel something, it just like it's like comes out.
Well, I think it's really useful. I mean, in particular for this type of book and in kind of today's book market in general, is
Oh,
what I found is that, authenticity is like really a highly valued characteristic.
thank you. That's very comforting.
Well, I mean, it's just for what it's worth. I mean, I think it really
Thanks.
goes a long ways. So kind of looking forward, I know you're in the middle of launching this book, but do you have any plans that you can talk about for future work?
I'm very excited because I have some books that I'm thinking about. I'm going to tell you, and I don't think I've talked to a lot of people about this, but it's called, I haven't signed a book deal or anything, but yet, but it's called The Samaritan Woman's Diary.
Hmm.
And it's, I love the story of the Samaritan woman so, so much. I mean, it's so layered and it's so layered spiritually and it's layered societal
Yeah.
wise
Yeah.
and historical. I mean, there's so many
Hmm.
things going on in that interaction. The more you study it, the more you find. And so I'm writing a diary that's it's biblical fiction and it's a diary of this woman from when she's around 14, 15 to up until her meeting at the well. She's also called, like the woman at the well
Hmm.
with Jesus, like right at that time. So I'm
Hmm.
very excited. I've been writing that for about a year now. And usually a book doesn't take me that long to write, but it's been harder because so many aspects are pulled from my life. So it's like
Hmm.
I'm re-experiencing things. So it's making it a little harder, but I'm just really excited about it too.
Well, one thing I find interesting is you've written in several different genres.
Yeah.
Which really is takes a lot of skill. I mean, it's one thing to write
Yes.
one well,
Oh,
but to write more than one, that's not easy at all.
thank you. I wish I could stick to a genre. It's career wise, it's wiser to stay in a genre because you establish yourself there and you establish a readership there. That's what you're supposed to do. But I always write from like what I'm feeling at the time and it like jumps around so that my books follow it and it's just what it is. It is what it is.
Well, good for you. I mean, that's really, I mean, and you're young, so you've got a lot of future ahead of you to
Oh,
go in, many different directions, which is really wonderful.
oh, thank you. God willing, I'm able to do that. I'm trying to always just express the book that I feel that comes on my heart, and it's the only way I'm able to do it. And I feel very blessed that I've been able to write and have a writing career because it's my dream come true from age 9. So I feel happy.
Well, anything you'd like to pass along to other writers that are not as far along?
Definitely keep going. I was at the bank the other day, and my teller was this young man. He had to be like 20, 21 tops, and I don't know how we started talking about it, but I think I said to him like, "Do you write?" I just felt like he was like a writer, and he said, "Yes, I think about it. I write a little bit here and there, but I could tell he was kind of." Sometimes people believe it's like a pipe dream that they can't.
Hmm.
And so I would say the same thing I told him is that I've noticed just the difference between people who end up writing and fulfilling their dreams. Just it's really perseverance because you look at the people who are maybe where you want to be and you think that there's something very special about them or they have like this connection you can't ever get, but really it's just they kept going in the
Yeah.
face of a lot of no's. More no's than I think people are even willing to talk about. Like there's so much rejection, so many bad reviews, so many, you can have agents who say no or no thank you, and publishers who maybe they publish one book but they don't want your next book. There's a lot, so you have to just keep going. And also self-publishing, I've self-published a lot too, and it's amazing. So get your work out there any way that you can, because it's important. Nobody can write from your perspective. Nobody can say the things that are just in your heart and mind. So definitely, please do the writing. Just do it.
I totally agree with the perseverance comment. I mean, that's the number one characteristic, I think, to success. It's a marathon. It's not a sprint.
Yes, you have to keep going, and it has to be based in just your love for it and your belief in it. Writing is not always fun, but there's this underlying, like, this is what I need to do. This is what I'm meant to do.
Well, I'm glad you found that calling.
Again.
So, Bunmi, thanks so much for being with us. Don't forget the name of the new
Oh,
book is Help Me God, I'm a Parent, Honest Prayers for Hectic Days and Endless Nights. And you can learn more at Bunmi's website, bunmiladitan.com. So thanks again, Bunmi, and best wishes in all of your future endeavors.
thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it.